Beyond the Gates spoilers tease that even the strongest alliances can crumble under the weight of hidden lies, as the truth emerges in a blaze of betrayal that none could have foreseen. Bill Hamilton had always believed his marriage to Haley was built on trust, a union woven from shared dreams and whispered promises. Yet beneath the facade of domestic bliss, Haley harbored a scheme so intricate that its unraveling would expose every deceit she had meticulously crafted. Bill's suspicions first took form months ago, when he noticed inconsistencies in Haley's explanations about her whereabouts, subtle discrepancies that he initially dismissed as memory lapses. After all, she worked long shifts at the hospital and volunteered at various community clinics. But gradually, Bill began to see patterns in her absence: late-night phone calls hushed when he entered a room, unexplained envelopes with bundles of cash tucked beneath her dresser drawer, and the hushed tone she adopted whenever Naomi's name came up. However, it was not until he stumbled upon a hidden ledger that he realized just how deep Haley's deception ran. The ledger was slipped between pages of a medical textbook Haley had left on their coffee table one evening. It contained detailed notes, dates, times, and amounts paid to an unnamed associate, references to certain deliverables, and annotations scrawled in Haley's unmistakable handwriting. Bill's heart pounded as he read line after line that lay bare her intricate plans that, when fully understood, made his blood run cold. Within those pages was the blueprint for a scheme to discredit Bill financially, painting him as a fraudulent partner in some medical grant manipulation that only existed in her twisted narrative. The endgame, Bill realized with dawning horror, was to ensure that her name remained untarnished, while he took the fall for crimes she had orchestrated from behind the scenes. If he dared to confront her, she would simply play the victim. "Oh, Bill, why don't you trust me?" But if he remained silent, his reputation, his career, and the trust of their family would be sacrificed at the altar of her security. That night, Bill lay awake in their bedroom, the autumn moon casting silver slashes through the blinds. He stared at Haley's sleeping form, her gentle breathing, the soft rise and fall of her chest, knowing that her innocence was a lie he could no longer entertain. He thought of Naomi, his daughter from a previous marriage, who had come back to live nearby after her divorce. Naomi had grown to love Haley as a stepmother, never suspecting the venom that coursed behind her warm smile. The burden of knowledge weighed on Bill like an anchor. He resolved to confront Haley at dawn, to force her hand into confession or flight. By morning, his resolve crystallized. He would demand the truth. When the first rays of the sun crept across the floorboards, Bill found Haley in the kitchen, preparing coffee. The steam curled from the mugs like ghostly tendrils. He watched her for a moment, collecting himself, then stepped forward. "Haley," he said, voice low, "we need to talk." Haley turned, her face registering surprise that here, in their safe haven, her carefully constructed world was collapsing. Bill slid the ledger across the table. Her eyes flickered to the open pages, to the neat rows of transactions, and to the ominous annotations that detailed her plotting. For a moment, she was silent, as though trying to calibrate her response. But a shadow flickered in her gaze, something like amusement, like she had been caught in a game, only she knew the rules too. Then she snapped the book shut and leaned back against the counter. "Where did you get that?" she asked, voice too calm. "Haley," Bill pressed, "I found it tucked in your medical textbooks. These entries, they spell out how you intended to frame me for fraud. You've been funneling money to an associate. How do you expect me to believe otherwise?" Haley's composure faltered, just for a heartbeat. A faint tremor passed through her flawless facade. Then she smiled, an illusion of serenity born from years of practice. "Bill, you have to understand. I did this for us. You've always been so idealistic, trusting everyone at face value. Sometimes, to survive, we have to bend the rules." Her words were venomous, yet drenched in a perverse logic that twisted his stomach. If you would just listen, you'd see that I'm protecting us from bankruptcy. You know what happened last year? Those grant applications fell through. I could not bear to lose the lifestyle we've built. Bill's pulse thundered. Protecting us? You were willing to throw me under the bus to save your skin. I'm not going to prison so you can live in a house you can't afford. His voice cracked, a raw note of betrayal piercing the air. Haley's lips curved in a wry smile, as though she had expected his reaction. You don't understand, Bill. They would have taken away everything. I had to ensure there was someone they could blame. I never wanted you hurt. I wish you would trust me to handle things. Trust you? Bill echoed, disgust coloring his tone. You used my trust as a weapon. Naomi trusts you. Our families trust you. How could you do this? He advanced, frustration giving way to resolve. I'm going to tell Naomi everything. Haley's face lost its veneer of calm. A flicker of panic shone in her eyes. She took a step back, as though sizing him up. You're making a mistake, she said, voice trembling just slightly. If you tell Naomi, you have no idea what you'll unleash. I can protect us both, just step away. There was menace in her gaze, a silent warning. Bill felt a surge of pity for the woman he had married, pity mixed with anger. I'm done stepping away, he said. I'll end this now. He turned toward the doorway, but as he moved, a flicker of motion caught his peripheral vision. A tall figure, clad in black from head to toe, materialized at the threshold, as though summoned from the shadows. Bill barely had time to register the assassin than the world tilted in agony. A gloved fist struck his jaw, sending him sprawling onto the tiled floor. Stars erupted behind his eyes, the ledger clattered to the ground, pages splayed open like wounded birds. He crumpled, hearing Haley's voice angry, triumphant echoing somewhere above him. He tried to raise his hand, to defend himself, but another blow rendered him unconscious beneath the harsh kitchen light. When Bill awoke, the taste of copper filled his mouth, and his head throbbed with unrelenting pain. He was lying on the cold floor, the ledger face down beside him. The kitchen was silent, eerily so. Haley's coffee mugs were neatly placed on the counter, as though nothing had transpired. Bill's vision cleared enough for him to see her standing across the room, arms crossed, head tilted like a predator savoring her kill. A bruise bloomed on her cheek from where he had caught her fist, and it only cemented her mastery over the situation. His eyes darted toward the back door, where the assassin had fled into the gray morning. Bill's breath came in ragged gasps as he pushed himself up, mind whirling with questions. Why had Haley resorted to violence so quickly? What price would she pay if the truth emerged? He looked at her, mind troubled by the oddness of her expression. There was something beyond cruelty there, something like fear tiptoeing beneath the edges. Before Bill could summon words, Haley reached for her phone and dialed Naomi. Naomi, she said, her voice trembling with contrived urgency, it's Haley. You need to come home, your father's been attacked. She paused, letting her tone become more fraught. He's unconscious, but he's breathing. The ambulance is on the way, but you should come. I'm so scared, Naomi. She let out a choked sob, a calculated performance that showed far more emotion than a genuine assailant would entail. Bill watched from the floor, rage and helplessness rising in him as Haley pressed her phone to her cheek, delivering every syllable to their daughter's ears. He wanted to scream, to reveal her lies, but his body would not respond. Instead, he sank back into a haze of pain, wondering how deep Haley's duplicity truly ran. Moments later, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder as they approached. Haley wiped fake tears from her eyes, sliding the phone into her pocket before calling out, Yes, the address is 142 Maplewood Lane. Please hurry. When paramedics burst through the front door, Haley led them to Bill with the practiced grace of a nurse performing triage. She knelt beside him, running a trembling hand over his forehead. "It's going to be okay," she whispered, her voice quavering in exactly the right way. When the medics assessed Bill's injuries, a mild concussion and a bruised cheek, they nodded at her, commending her for caring for her injured husband. Haley nodded obediently, as though she had just saved him from the brink, her heart beating with triumph. She helped Bill into the ambulance, all the while ensuring that the paramedics believed her fear was genuine. Haley's deception did not end with Bill's hospital admission. As soon as he was wheeled inside to receive treatment, she called her mysterious associate, the same figure who had attacked Bill, and instructed him to strike her as well. She whispered the instructions over the line, her voice laced with desperation. "Make it look real. I need bruises, a cut on my cheek, maybe my wrist sprained. No one can know I stood behind Bill's attack." She listed details with the calm precision of someone rehearsing a lie. "Make sure the paramedics treat me as a victim. Tell them you saw the attacker through the window and that I tried to intervene." Hanging up, she applied a thin smear of fake blood from a small kit concealed in her purse, then pressed an ice pack to her cheek, ensuring she appeared battered but not gravely wounded. By the time Naomi arrived, breathless and teary-eyed, she found both her parents in the hospital, Bill on a gurney, looking pale but stable, and Haley in a wheelchair, clutching her wrist. Nurses' notes detailed the superficial injuries, and the security camera footage from the ambulance bay conveniently captured a blurry silhouette attacking Haley as she disembarked. All signs pointed to Haley's version of events. Bill the victim, Haley the concerned spouse who had miraculously escaped with minor wounds. Naomi, panic-stricken, threw herself between the two, relief at her mother's survival, mingling with terror at their father's condition. Yet Naomi's instincts told her something was off. As the initial shock subsided, she noted the symmetry in Haley's injuries, a perfect bruise on her cheek, a wrist wrapped in a cast that looked too pristine, and her ISO full of tears, yet devoid of the exhausted haze one expects from genuine trauma. Naomi's gaze locked onto her mother's, searching for cracks in her performance. "Are you okay, Mom?" she asked, voice quivering. Haley nodded, handing her a crumpled tissue. "I'm fine, sweetheart," she said, voice breaking in precisely the right places. "I'm just shaken." But Naomi noticed that Haley's tone was missing the tremor of someone who had truly faced mortal danger. In that moment, Naomi's detective instincts, honed from years of observing subtle tells in high-stakes negotiations, flickered to life. She resolved to find the truth. While Bill was kept under observation for concussion and minor lacerations, Naomi began her investigation. She asked Nurse Thompson to review security footage from the hospital's parking garage, feigning concern over possible recurrence of an attack. The nurse, sympathetic and eager to help, pulled up 3 separate angles, one showing Haley wheeling Bill into the emergency bay, another captured from the loading dock. Naomi watched carefully. In the footage, Bill's gait faltered, his head lolling as he struggled to maintain consciousness. Haley's wheelchair glided beside him, pushed by an EMT. Then the camera switched to the angle from the sidewalk. There was Haley's silhouette in the wheelchair, bills of blood smeared on her cheek, but the timestamp corresponded to mere seconds after Bill's arrival. Naomi's heart sank as she realized it would have been nearly impossible for Haley to be attacked outside, wheel back in, and enter the hospital so quickly. The timeline was untenable. Moreover, in one blurry frame from the dock camera, Naomi noticed something even more damning, a second figure standing behind the EMT, just out of focus, a person in dark clothing, but the figure's stance, the way they held their hands, suggested that it was more than a random bystander. She zoomed in, adjusting the contrast, and her pulse quickened when she made out a familiar curve of the attacker's posture, exactly the same crooked stance from the witness description Bill gave. It struck her then like a thunderclap. The same man who attacked Bill had assaulted Haley mere moments later. Why would the same assassin follow Haley into the hospital? Unless Haley had summoned him. Naomi's breath caught. She backed away from the screen, her mind racing. She had to confirm it. Quietly, she left the security office, her pulse pounding through the corridors. She headed to Bill's hospital room, where her stepmother lay propped on pillows, the fake bandages on her wrist still intact, blood carefully painted upon her skin. The moment Haley saw Naomi's gaze, she offered another show of tears. "I'm sorry, honey, this is all too much." Naomi forced herself to remain calm, speaking in a low voice. "Mom, can I see your cast?" "The nurse said you sprained your wrist." Haley extended her arm, palm outstretched, revealing a stark white cast stained with the faintest smears of red. Naomi pretended to wince sympathetically, but her eyes flicked to the seam where the cast met Haley's skin. The stark contrast between the white plaster and Haley's naturally pale skin looked unnatural, as though the cast had been put on in haste. Naomi pressed gently on the cast's edge. Haley winced theatrically. "I tried to stop him, but," she trailed off, letting the pity in Naomi's gaze suffice. Yet Naomi noted that the cast had no scuff marks, no signs of being dropped or scrapped, a pristine accessory rather than evidence of a real struggle. Naomi forced herself to swallow her disgust as she exited the hospital room. As soon as she was out of Haley's sight, she made a beeline for Nurse Thompson's station. "Excuse me," she said, feigning concern. "Could you show me Bill's video from the security camera?" The nurse, taken aback, glanced toward the corridor. "Miss Hamilton, that footage is confidential. I can't just let you see it." Naomi's mind raced. "I understand, but I'm worried. I might have noticed something that could help the police. Please, just show me. I need to know if it was the same man who attacked Dad." The nurse hesitated, but then nodded compassionately. "One moment." She unlocked the station computer and brought up Bill's entrance video. Naomi paused it at the precise moment Bill was attacked, comparing the timestamp to Haley's footage. The two frames appeared within minutes of each other, corroborating her suspicions. Then she noticed something else. In the footage of Haley's attack, the assailant's profile bore an uncanny resemblance to someone who had been a frequent visitor to their home, someone Naomi had seen through the living room window on odd occasions. A security consultant named Marcus, a man Haley had introduced as a friend she met at a neighborhood watch meeting. Marcus had the same build, the same midnight black hair, and the same stubborn jut of his jaw that Naomi glimpsed in the distorted image. Her pulse hammered as she realized the assassin was no stranger, was Haley's confidant, handpicked to do her bidding. The pieces clicked into place: Haley's ledger, the hush money payments to Marcus, the orchestrated attacks meant to frame Bill, and her own later victimization to solidify her innocence. Naomi felt a surge of cold fury and a pang of heartbreak. She remembered all the times she had called Haley Mom, the afternoons they spent baking cookies, the times Haley had comforted her over late-night phone calls. All of it was a lie. She clenched her fists, determined to bring Haley to justice. Naomi spent the next hours gathering evidence discreetly. She downloaded security footage to a flash drive, copied excerpts from Bill's ledger, and retrieved nurses' notes from Bill's doctors that indicated his injuries were genuinely severe beyond the mild bruises Haley had later assumed to bolster her story. She found phone records showing repeated calls from Haley to Marcus in the days leading up to the attack. Every detail coalesced into a damning indictment. Her heart ached for Bill, lying helpless in the hospital bed, and she vowed that no more lies would remain in the shadows. That evening, when Haley finally made her way home supported by Naomi, who insisted on accompanying her, Haley immediately collapsed onto the sofa, exhaustion flickering across her features. Naomi set down a glass of water before her, watching her stepmother closely. "Haley," she began softly, "I need to talk to you." Haley looked up, a faint hopeful spark in her bloodshot eyes. "You're free to speak," she replied, voice quavering. "But please, be gentle. I've been through so much." Naomi shook her head. "Don't patronize me. I know what you've done." Haley's face twisted with confusion. "What are you talking about?" Naomi slid the flash drive onto the coffee table, pushing it toward her. I have the security footage of you calling Marcus to do your bidding. I have the nurse's notes proving Marcus attacked Dad, the same man who came to save you when you called for help. Then you had him attack you to frame him. I have your ledger showing payments to Marcus. There's no way out. The room fell into a tense silence. Haley's eyes darted to the flash drive, then to Naomi, panic sweeping across her features. You can't do this, she whispered, her voice barely audible. If you tell anyone, I lose everything. Naomi rose, moving closer. You already have. Thank you for proving how twisted the truth was. You took everything from user trust, our peace. But I'm not going to let you get away with this. The police will have all of it by morning. Haley's face drained of color. She opened her mouth, trying to form words that would dismantle Naomi's evidence, but her mind was blank, no lie left to tell. Anguish and fear contorted her features. Naomi watched her, hardly recognizing the woman who had once comforted her. Now she saw only a manipulator, willing to sacrifice her husband's life to preserve her own reputation. Do what you must, Haley croaked, voice hollow. Naomi turned toward the door, pausing in the threshold. I loved you, she said quietly. But you left me no choice. With that, she left Haley alone in the silent living room, the flash of the setting sun glinting off the keys she had placed beside the faux keys to a jail cell that awaited her once Naomi's summons was made. The next morning, as police cars pulled up the driveway, Haley sat on the sofa, staring at the empty cast she had abandoned, no longer able to sustain her charade. Handcuffs clicked around her wrists, the metal cold against her skin. Bill, released from the hospital after being cleared, watched his wife escorted to the police cruiser. His eyes were red-rimmed, not from remorse for her, but from the devastation of realizing the life they shared had been a sham. Naomi stood nearby, arms folded, her gaze steady as she watched Haley's deflated figure. She felt a deep sorrow, but stronger still was a sense of justice. The chains of lies had been shattered, and she had done what was necessary to preserve her family's honor. As the cruiser's engine fired, Bill placed a hand on Naomi's shoulder. Thank you, he whispered. Naomi nodded, though tears pinned her lashes. Dad, we'll get through this. Together. Bill's eyes glistened. Together, he affirmed. In that moment, as the gates of their home closed behind the flashing lights, Naomi realized that while their lives would never be the same, they had reclaimed the truth and with it, a chance to rebuild on foundations stronger than any lie. And so, in the aftermath of Haley's unmasked treachery, Bill and Naomi faced a future tinged with sorrow yet fortified by truth, knowing that beyond any gates, physical or metaphorically, the power to expose deception and forge a path toward genuine redemption.